Welcome to episode 23 of The Player and the Journalist with Karson Harris and David Vick. In this episode, we will be discussing NCAA Tournament bubble teams, who is in, who is out. We will share our thoughts with the postseason right around the corner. Karson Harris, All-American, two appearances in the NCAA Tournament. How are we doing today?
Well, let's not talk about those NCAA appearances. They've been a struggle for me, but I'm doing good. I'm excited for the tournament. This is when it starts to get really good, and also it's when I can get to start to watch all the games because they start to all kind of accumulate onto ESPN Plus, which I actually have. So I'm excited.
For sure. It's a good time to be a lacrosse fan. End of April is a very exciting time. We actually had the ACC tournament start today. Duke beat Louisville to keep their season hopes a glimmer of yeah, just barely alive. They're done. I'm sorry, folks. Let's see. And then Virginia Tech beat Pitt. So Virginia Tech, they might come up in this episode. Who knows? Maybe not.
I like them. They're not on my list, but I like them. I think they're a good.
They're not on my list either.
Oh.
But they might actually know. Wait, let me see. They are on my list. I'm sorry, I lied. I had a hard time coming up with my list. I had two teams on it that I then scratched out and replaced. And one of them I replaced with was Virginia Tech. So
there you go. They're a solid team. They're fun to watch. They could surprise some people for sure.
For sure. So before we get into this episode, Boston College upset Syracuse. Thoughts on that? That was just a few days ago.
I saw that and I was not expecting that at all. I didn't like what they came back. Wasn't like a 6-goal deficit or something that they came back from. I think
it was 5 or 6.
I remember turning it on and being like, oh, well, Syracuse is gonna run away with this. That makes sense. And then all of a sudden, Boston College, I turned it back on and I was like, wait, I woke up from a nap and I was like, oh my god, this is crazy. I was very surprised, honestly. Like I think I can say I was wrong about Boston College this year. I was worried they weren't gonna have people to step up and play, and they found their stride towards the end of the season. I think they've had people start to step up. They got used to being a team without Charlotte North, and I've been impressed by them, and I was impressed with them in that game too.
Listen, they have Shea Dulce, a true freshman in net, which Acacia Walker-Weinstein, we'll have to talk about that in another episode, but she is not afraid to make changes in net, okay? Rachel Hall replaced Abby Nye when she transferred from Oregon, and Abby Nye led them to the championship the year before. Now Rachel Hall, a 5-year starter, gets replaced by a freshman this year. It's crazy.
My heart is ripped out for Rachel Hall, though. Like, I understand the change, I do, but oh god, that's tough. That's
listen, if you go to Boston College, you got to listen. We had Courtney Taylor on the show. She said you better perform in practice.
True, she did say it's your spot to earn every time.
So, anyways. Now that we have that out of the way, we will start with topic number 1. Who is in? I believe we each have 2 teams. Karson, you will go first. Who is your team that is in the tournament as we speak right now?
All right, so I could be biased about this because they are my alma mater, but
I'm
throwing Drexel in the mix here. Listen, I'm throwing them in the mix, and I'm the most critical also. Like at the same time, I love them, but I'm also the most critical of them because I obviously know them pretty well, and I think they've just handled their business this year. Like they don't have any horrible losses. They beat everyone they were supposed to. They beat Johns Hopkins, which is huge. And at the point in the season when they beat them, I wasn't sure that was going to be huge. I mean, now it's impressive. Hopkins has played well throughout the season, and they beat Temple in a close game. They've lost to number 11 Stony Brook, number 10 Maryland, and number 12 Penn State at this point. And I want to preface this: all of my rankings are coming from US Lacrosse Magazine as of April 18th. So that's where I'm pulling this from. I know they're all different. But I just think that they handled their business. They remained consistent. Like I think they should have beat Towson, obviously. That's, I think, a tough loss for them. But that's always a gritty CAA game. That one's always up in the air for us. Like that's a huge rival in that conference. So I think they see Towson again, they could beat them. And I think I kind of just put them in there because of their consistency, and they had that win over Hopkins to kind of push them over the edge for me. Without that win, I don't think I'd put them in. And when it comes down to it, also, like, defense wins championships. Not saying they're going to win a championship, but I'm saying that they might deserve to be in. I mean, they are holding teams to under 10 goals a game right now, which is 15th in the country. That's 15th, like, lowest in the country. And Jenica Cuoco, Drexel's 3rd in the country in save percentage right now. Like, I think that those stats deserve a bid into the NCAA tournament, especially with Stony Brook joining our league. It makes it a tougher conference. So obviously my alma mater, but I do feel like I have some sort of facts to back that up. I think that you throw them in there, you see how they do, because they've proved they have a good defense, and I think that's important going into NCAA tournament play.
Listen, Karson, I gotta be honest. Drexel's a good team. I do think that. So, Towson Stony Brook this weekend was a very good game. Towson trailed pretty much the whole time, but they were within 2 or 3. It was a competitive game, and so they have a chance to beat Stony Brook in the conference tournament. I think that either Towson or Drexel will get an at-large bid. I don't think both of them will. So
no,
I think if Towson and Drexel play each other in the tournament, the winner of that game gets an at-large bid. So I think.
See, but I don't think they're going to. I think that the problem I think because Drexel will be third going into the tournament, right? And Stony Brook's gonna be first. So I think Drexel's gonna play Stony Brook right off the bat.
No, it would be 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3.
Oh, you're right. It's not 1-3, so they would play. You're right. So I think there's a lot of potential for that.
So yeah, I think Drexel's a very good team. I think Jenica, am I saying her name right? Jenica?
Yeah, Jenica.
Yeah. I feel like I'm stuttering just because of the "ka" at the end of her name. But anyways, she has been great this season. I think Drexel is a good team. They just, like you said, they're taking care of their business. They don't really have any. They have the Johns Hopkins win, but if they could have added another ranked win on there somewhere, then I think it would be a different story, because they are in a smaller conference. But the only one ranked win is because I was like, why did I not choose Towson? Like, what was I? And I just went back to their roster, and I did look. They had a loss to St. Joseph's early in the season, and they also lost to Hopkins in overtime. So I think that's where I pulled that from, just because, like, I think whereas Hopkins losing to whoever I just said, that was not great. Who did I just say? I'll get to Hopkins later. They're on one of my teams. So we'll get to them.
Yeah. Anyway, so I do think I agree with you. If they see that, which I think they will now, if they see each other in the tournament, the winner of that game will probably go. And I'll put my money on Drexel because they're my alma mater.
Yeah. So I think Drexel, that's not a bad team to have in. I think, listen, winning you're in. They don't have to win the conference championship, but they just have to beat Towson. So
I agree.
And especially since they lost to Towson already in the season. If they split the season series, whoever wins the second matchup is like seen as the better team because it's later in the season. So, hey, Drexel might be getting back. They might be going dancing again. Okay.
We'll cross our fingers. And God, and it looked like I was looking like, God, I just hope we don't go to Stony Brook again. That's just.
Hey, Stony Brook is beatable. They lost to Rutgers, and I know you're not very high on Rutgers, so.
No, I don't mean there. I just mean I hope they don't have to make that trip to the island again. It's just a brutal
the island. Well, actually, where's the CAA tournament this year? Isn't it at Towson?
Oh, I don't know. It should be. I guess it should be home because we won it last year. So.
Wait, you said it's at Drexel?
It should. Theoretically.
I thought it was at Drexel last year.
It was because JMU won. They do it based on who won the conference last year.
Oh.
And JMU won it 2 years ago, but then they dropped. They weren't in our conference anymore, so then we were second, so we got it, and then we won it last year. So technically, it should be us, but I'm not sure if it's us or Stony Brook because they were regular season champions.
Interesting. I did see Drexel break out some new uniforms. I don't know if I just noticed this or not. I thought they were pretty cool.
Oh, really? I don't love them, but they are new. They haven't wearing them this season. I'm not sure. It's very retro. They're very retro.
Hey, speaking of retro, Marquette. Okay, they've had some retro jerseys for many years now. They finally upgraded, thank God, because the retros were kind of ugly. I'm sorry, but Marquette, 15-1. If they are not a lock to make the tournament, I don't know who is. Okay, I might not even watch the tournament. Okay, I might go to the government and file a protest. Okay, this is Marquette, 15-1, 5-0 in Big East play, and the Big East is a pretty good conference this year. You got Denver, top 5 team, undefeated, pretty much beaten everyone they have beaten everyone they faced, and there's a good chance they're going to make a tournament run because of their defense, which is insane. Okay, so anyways, and Marquette has 1 game left in the regular season against Denver next weekend. Okay. If they win that, then they're a lock. they should already be ranked. I have no clue what the voters are thinking. Somehow in the IWLCA poll, UConn is 24-25. I think they have 4 losses, maybe 5 losses, and one of them is to Marquette, who just beat them, and Marquette isn't ranked. Are you kidding me? What in the world? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, it's stupid. So, anyways,
wait. So where
Marquette,
are you pulling their wins from? What are you saying is their reasoning for being ranked? Their wins that
Oh.
like would get them ranked.
I got a lot of data for you, Karson. You
All
ready
right,
for
go
it?
ahead. Hit me with it.
Okay. I'm going to start off with their loss, actually. They have one loss, and that was to Northwestern, who is probably going to be the number 1 team in the country come the upcoming rankings, okay? They lost 21-14. They put up 14 goals on Model Liberty. I mean, that's pretty good, okay? Let's see, their best wins. Now, listen, I did not think their strength of schedule was very hard, so they don't have a lot of great wins, but they have good wins, okay? Obviously, they beat UConn 12-9. UConn's a ranked team. And I know you're going to give me some crap for the rest of the teams I have. Well, first off, one team I did not have on for a big one is they beat UC Davis, who I'm very high on, okay? I think UC Davis is one of the most criminally underrated teams in the country, okay? Almost beat UVA, who's going into the tournament. So anyways, UC Davis, when they join the Pac-12, people are going to have to start putting some respect on their names next season. Okay, anyways. Marquette also beat Central Michigan, who has a good chance to win the MAC for the second year in a row and be in the tournament. And I know Central Michigan is not a great team, but if they make the NCAA tournament and Marquette has beaten them, then that's a win over a tournament team. So,
but does that count if you win your tournament? If you win your conference to get into the tournament?
Hey, listen, I have the facts here. Okay, 29 teams make the NCAA tournament. I'm looking at my notepad. Okay, 15 conference champions make the tournament, and then 14 at-large teams. So the MAC is obviously not a top-level conference, and the only way a team from that conference, whether it's Robert Morris, Central Michigan, Eastern Michigan, who I picked, who I think is like 1-14. I don't know what I was thinking. So 14 at-large teams make the tournament, okay? You're telling me that Marquette is not one of the 14 best non-conference winners? Come on. Anyways, back to the wins. Okay. Central Michigan might not make it. I think there's like a 3-way tie at the top of the MAC right now. So that's getting crazy out in the Midwest, okay? Or Mid-Atlantic, excuse me. Okay, they beat Louisville, which I know Louisville's not that good, but guess what? They're in the ACC. Okay, that's an ACC win. I'll take it.
Okay.
And they also beat Ohio State. That's a Big Ten win. So they have 2 non-conference wins against teams in the 2 best conferences. Okay, what are your thoughts on my argument?
I think that they have ACC and Big Ten wins against some of the worst programs in those conferences. So I'm not, you can say ACC win all you want. I think Louisville, it's like Louisville and then Pitt at the bottom of the ACC right now. So I'll give it to you. It's an ACC win. I'm not sure that that's a hill that I would die on if I were you, but it could be. And I also think that I'm not sure I can fully get behind the argument that because they beat a tournament team, that means they should be in the tournament, even though it's a tournament team that won because of their conference. I think if they'd beaten somebody that was going to get an at-large bid, then that's a different conversation because they should obviously be ahead of somebody that was going to get an at-large bid in my head. Also, I'd like to know what poll is UConn ranked on?
IWLCA, and they've been ranked for a few weeks.
Okay.
They've dropped in the rankings because they've been losing at the hands of the Marquette Golden Eagles, I must say. But
okay, I'm not telling you you're wrong. I think that they could make it in there and they could get a great bid. I just am not sure that they have done enough to prove themselves for an at-large bid, but it's not their fault. I just think they haven't had enough. They haven't played teams that would give them a chance to prove themselves. Although, with that being said, before you give me that look, I was going to completely disregard what you were saying before they beat Villanova today. I think that that gave you a much better leg to stand on because Villanova was definitely being considered for an at-large bid. And I think that Marquette beating them is very, very helpful for their case. So I'm not saying you're wrong. I think they should deserve it. But I think that's the hill I would probably die on.
Okay, Villanova, very good season. But come on now. Listen, it's important that Marquette won today because you don't want to get into the situation if you're if you're fighting for an at-large bid where you end the regular season poorly, because they can use that against you, the selection committee. So it is very important that they won today, even though they did not have their best game. A lot of turnovers, which when you play at the pace that they play at, if you watch the first half of the game, the pace was insane. They had a lot of unforced turnovers, but that something that comes with playing at a high pace. But so I'm glad you agree with me. I saved my best stats for last. So I still have at least 5 more statistics to give you. Okay. Who is number 1 in draw controls per game in the entire United States of America? That would be the Marquette University Golden Eagles. Okay. And who's number 2 in scoring offense, only behind Northwestern? Marquette. This team puts up goals. Okay. And they're in the top 50% in scoring defense and turnovers per game, which is pretty good. Not bad. I mean, like I said, you're gonna have a lot of turnovers when you're playing at the pace they do. Anyways, I got the better stats coming for you. Okay.
Well, there's more.
Are you familiar with the Rankings Power Index, RPI?
I am.
Okay, so for anyone not familiar with it, it's something that the selection committee, I believe, uses when choosing teams. I feel like this is like a universal thing in all sports, in college sports, that selection committees use when determining the postseason. So RPI is based on a team's winning percentage, their average opponent's winning percentage, and the average opponent's winning percentage. Okay. Out of 126 teams in the country, Marquette entered the weekend at number 16.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, 16. Okay. And they beat Villanova today, who's number 21. And they still have to play Denver, who's number 8. So their RPI is just going to go up, I would think. I'm not an RPI calculator over here, but I think it's going to go up. And they could very well play Denver twice because they play them to end the regular season, and then they have the Big East tournament, which they could very well match up with them. So I think Marquette should be in no matter what. And if they beat Denver either next weekend or in the tournament, they're going to be in. So I think 15-1 in the Big East. It's not like they're 15-1 in the MAC or some other lower tier conference like the ASUN. Sorry, ASUN, you caught a stray, but it happens. I think Marquette is in.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think those stats are awesome. I think the draw control one's awesome. I love the scoring offense. Like, I'll give it for you. I think your second half of the argument really tied it there with a bow. I like it was a good. You followed it up well. So
who's your second team?
My second team is Army, and I have a lot to say about Army. I mostly put them in there so I could humble brag about myself, because a couple podcasts ago, we talked about Army and I said, listen, they're going to be good. They're not going to have any breakout wins. They're going to be good. I predicted 13-3. They went 14-2. I said at the beginning of the season, the Jacksonville and Rutgers wins weren't going to be great wins. Both of them ended the season unranked. So I didn't think they'd end. I didn't think that they were going to be in the top 15 because they didn't have enough firepower on their schedule. Besides Yale and Loyola, who they both lost to. So that ended up being true. So
they got smacked by Loyola, right? Wasn't that that was a beatdown, right?
Yeah, that was a bad one. So I first put them on there just to humble brag about myself. Secondly, however, I was wrong about the Navy game. I said 13-3 because I thought they were going to lose to Navy. They went 14-2 because they beat Navy. And I think that might be the game that kind of skyrocketed them into the tournament a little bit. Because they beat Jacksonville, like we said, ended up not being impressive. Beat Rutgers, like we said, ended up being not impressive. But their win over Navy, I think that Navy was also in the conversation. I think that game meant a lot to both of those teams to see who was going to win. Because obviously they lost to Yale, number 19, Loyola, number 9. Like, those are losses. One of those would have been nice. But when it comes to the last 4 in, last 4 out, that kind of thing, I think it's literally a game of just like minuscule wins and losses here and there. And I think that their win over Navy kind of solidifies their run for them. Plus, they're like a huge Cinderella story. Like, everyone loves, they're an awesome team. I actually got to watch the whole Army Navy game, and I was very impressed with them. I think they're a really good team. They're really solid. They make the hustle plays. So I'm excited for them. I think that they'll make the tournament, and hopefully we'll cross our fingers for a little Cinderella run for them, because it will be exciting. I'm on their team.
I agree with you. I think they're in. I think probably a first round exit, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, this is a building year for that program. I think I think they're in, so I don't really want to point out their flaws. I think they're a team that forces opponents to beat them. They're not going to do anything flashy. They're not going to they don't have anyone that's going to like take over a game, in my opinion, but they're going to make you make plays to beat them. And so I think that's something a lot of teams don't do. A lot of teams give games away. So props to Army. They do the little things right.
Wait, before you say that they don't have somebody take over the game. Who was this girl? This girl popped off. Allison Riley had 9 of their 15 goals in the Army-Navy game. This girl had 9 goals.
Hey, props to her performing in the biggest game of the season.
Yeah, so we'll see. I mean, hopefully she carries that momentum. And I think and I wasn't familiar with them personally, but the announcer was talking about 2 other girls. Like Bridget Duffy only had 1 in that game, and I know she's like
Bridget Duffy's good.
She's kind of a star. And then there was one more that people kept saying, like, these people are silent, but Allison Riley is popping off. So it was promising to me that they had multiple people that could have like talent in big games like that to score.
So yeah, I think they're gonna be in. So yeah, I have no complaints about that one. Good pick, Karson.
Thank God.
Okay, this team, my next team is out of the Big Ten. Okay, and I had a very difficult time with this pick. I was going back and forth, and the team I chose them over, I'll get to again later because they're still on my list in another section. I have the Michigan Wolverines being in at this point in time. Okay, listen. Huh?
I said interesting. Okay.
Oh, so Michigan 10-6, 3-3 in the Big Ten. Big Ten, very competitive conference, second best conference behind the ACC. Okay. Michigan 10-6. All of their losses came to teams that were ranked at the time. They played 9 ranked games this season. 9. That is insane. That is absurd. Okay. That means, that's just 9 ranked games out of 16 total. Props to Hannah Nielsen for scheduling. Okay. And it better not come back to bite him in the booty like it did Arizona State last year, because that was a whole scam. We don't need to dive back into that. So he went 3-6 against teams that were ranked at the time. I mentioned a good loss for Marquette. I'm going to mention another one. Now, I'm going to get into losses. Obviously, you don't get in based on your losses, but Michigan only lost to Denver by 2 goals, 7-5.
God, Denver's games are always so low scoring. It's so funny. That's impressive, though.
For sure. So as far as wins, their best win, in my opinion, is against Penn State, who's going to be in the tournament. I would think they've had a lot of big wins this year. They beat Penn State by 2. They beat Rutgers by 10. They held Rutgers to 4 goals. And I know Rutgers isn't a great team this year, but to hold a team in the Big Ten to 4 goals, sheesh, that's impressive. Okay. And they beat Jacksonville to start the season on the road, 14-10. So I think that, well, let's say this. If they hadn't played 9 ranked games, say they played 7, they could be 12-4 right now. We probably wouldn't be having a discussion about them being on the edge. They'd be higher in the rankings, all that jazz. So I don't think they should get punished for the 9 ranked games. Okay. When you play that many, you're going to lose some. Now, obviously 6 is a lot to lose, but it happens. So anyways, I think that to secure, well, actually, before I get into the second part of my debate for Michigan, what are your thoughts on the Wolverines?
I haven't had the opportunity to watch them that much this year, so I'm not sure about their actual, I can't say comment on their team that much, but I can, I agree with your argument. I don't think that playing 9 ranked games should ever come back to bite you in the butt. Part of it is
unless
because
you go 0-9, but they did not. So
what'd you say?
Unless you go 0-9, but they did not.
Right,
so.
Which they did not. And I do think that part of it's just because there's so many ranked teams in the Big Ten that they have to play ranked teams, right? That's kind of part of it. I do have a question for you. Who do we think from the Big Ten do you think it's like them or Hopkins, or do you think it's going to be a Maryland, Northwestern, Penn State, Hopkins, and Michigan? Or do you think that they're going to have to be over a Penn State or a Hopkins to get in? You think there's 5 Big Ten bids?
So I was going back and forth with them and Hopkins. And Hopkins did beat them just like 2 weeks ago, I think last week maybe. And so I know we're going to get into Hopkins because Hopkins is such a tough team this year to are they good? Obviously they're good when they play, but they've been like, I don't want to spoil my interesting facts that I have for the audience on Hopkins, okay? But Michigan, I think they should be in right now, but I think if they win their first round game in the Big Ten tournament against Penn State, that they will be in. And if they beat Penn State twice, then Penn State could be in trouble. If Penn State wins that game, I think Penn State is in. So Penn State is the Big Ten is an interesting conference this year because
that is because 5 bids is a lot. But I feel like there's 5 teams. Like I agree with you that 5 teams deserve it, but 5 bids out of the Big Ten is a lot.
5 out of 14. So they'll have one conference champ automatic bid, and then so this is. I was struggling with this though too because normally the Ivy League gets at least 2 teams in. I think the Ivy League might only get 1 team in because of how poor Yale has played down the stretch, how Princeton's below 500. The only team that's been good in the Ivy League this year consistently is Penn. So if only one Ivy League team gets in, that's going to open up a spot that no one thought was open entering the season.
True. And I also feel like, doesn't Yale play Penn this coming weekend?
They play Columbia.
Oh no, they already they lost to Penn. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
True. That's fair. Because Yale has been horrible. They lost to Penn, Harvard, and Cornell. That's tough.
Yeah. So I don't know so let's go this way. So from the Big Ten, Maryland is in, Northwestern is in. Then you have Penn State, Michigan, and Hopkins. Am I missing anyone?
Nope. Those are probably the 5 that would.
I think all 3 of those could get in. I think two of the 3 will definitely get in. I think depending on how the other conferences fall and who wins the automatic bids, they could get all 3 in. Like if someone upsets Penn in the Ivy League, that's going to take an at-large bid away from another team because Penn's going to be in the tournament no matter what, I think. So I don't know. This is fun stuff to talk about.
All right, let's hear it. You have a second half of this argument, don't you?
No, my second half was just that I think if they beat Penn State in the first round of the Big Ten tourney, that they'll be in. Because then they'll be 4-7 in ranked games. They'll be at 11-6, and even if they lose the next round, which I think the next round, I'm not sure who they would play. I don't have that written down. But.
That's too far in the future for me. I can't think that far in advance. But
so, as a recap for who is in, you have which 2 teams?
I have Drexel and Army.
Okay, so we both agreed on Army, and I think Drexel has a very good chance to make it. All you have to do is beat Towson. Lee Karson, we're in the middle of a podcast.
My Grammy called me.
Let's see. And so I had Marquette and Michigan. We both agreed on Marquette. Unsure about Michigan? Is that the...
Yeah, I mean, I'm only unsure about Michigan just because of how many people are in the Big Ten are good. But I can see your argument for sure. But I think that gives me a little bit of uncertainty.
Awesome. So moving on to topic 2, who is out? And this was tough. Okay, I'm going to start off with the Yale Bulldogs, which a month ago, I never would have imagined that they would not be in the NCAA tournament. They were 9-3. That was probably only a few weeks ago. They were 9-3, but I think I wrote down their record, but wrong. But anyways, they've lost 3 straight games. They've lost to Penn by 10. No rhyme intended. They lost to Harvard by 1, and they lost to Cornell by 2. Harvard and Cornell are not going to the tournament. Now, I will shout out Cornell. They've played some good games this year. They've had some respectable wins, but they're not going to the tournament. So then you look at Yale. They're 3-3 in the Ivy League, and the Ivy League's not very good this year. I think. So I know Princeton is 2 games below 500. Dartmouth is below 500. I'm not sure about Harvard and Cornell. Penn is above 500. Yale's above 500. I would assume there has to be at least another team above 500 because they can't all be. I mean, someone's got to win the games. Okay. So they do have a win against your Army
Harvard.
Black Knights.
I don't want to interrupt you, but Harvard is above 500.
Okay.
They are 8.
It's just you're playing odds. Someone's got to be up there. So Yale did beat Army 14-13. They beat Army. That's an Army we both believe is going to the tournament. So that's a win over a tournament team that is going to get in whether they win their conference or not, in our opinions.
Yeah.
Yale's strength of schedule is not very good. And I hate to say it, but it was just not very good. They beat, they beat Army, and they beat two other teams who were ranked at the time they played, but have proven to be very bad teams. One, wait, you laugh now. Wait till I finish my sentence, okay? The Duke Blue Devils, my national championship pick, okay, my goodness. Losing record. Princeton, losing record. So those are two ranked wins against teams that finished with losing records, and no one views them as a ranked team right now. And somehow Princeton has hung around in the rankings for so long. What in the world? It's anyways, I think Yale could be in trouble if they don't win the Ivy League, which is looking like Penn is the class of the field.
I agree with you. I hadn't checked up on them in a while. I hadn't really looked to see what they were doing. So that was an eye opener. You just opened my eyes for me just now. I had not realized how horribly their season had just kind of disintegrated on them. That's a bummer. I think they were really high. People were really looking at them to be a really strong team this year. And I'd be curious, do you know what they were ranked coming into the season? I can't remember.
I'm not
sure. They were ranked though. Weren't they on the top 25? I feel like they were ranked. I could be wrong about that.
I feel like, they were definitely ranked at some point.
Yeah.
They're 9-5, and let's see. So before they went on this 3-game losing streak, on April 4th, they did beat Army. So since April 4th, they've lost 3 straight games. They're going to beat Columbia to end the season. So they'll finish at 10-5. But other than beating Army, I'm looking at their schedule right now. They've beaten Vermont, who's probably not going to win the America East tournament. They've beaten Quinnipiac, beaten Central Connecticut State University, beat Temple, who's, I think they're right around 500. I don't know how they beat ECU over the weekend, but shout out to them. Shout out Mastro Pietro. Love her name. They beat Temple. Oh, I just said that. They beat Dartmouth, who's below 500. They beat Brown, who's okay. Well, they're not going to the tournament. I mean, they haven't beaten anyone.
This is kind of when I went back to what I was saying about Drexel, is they had a statement win and they also took care of their business. That Army win would have been enough for Yale, I think, had they won the games that they should have won. You know what I mean? But they didn't win those games that they should have won. So the Army, it's kind of like a negated, it's a mute point, the Navy win, because they lost such horrible games.
And even if they lost to Penn, obviously 10 goals isn't a great look, but if you beat Harvard and Cornell, and you're 11-3, 5-1 in the Ivy League, that's enough.
Yeah, and you have your win over Army, and I agree with you. I think that that was just a case of them not taking care of their business, and that's going to end up biting them in the butt when they start picking.
So I think they really hurt themselves. Like you said, they did not take care of business, which sucks. Especially all that's happened with that program this year. It would have been really cool to see them get in the tournament, and they're not out of it. Out of it. But I would say it's not looking great for them right now.
Yeah, I agree. All right. So I had a really hard time picking the out people, because I just feel like, I just texted you the other day, I think after 15, from 15 to 30, no, 15 to 45 is just such a mix up. You could throw them all, and the only way to tell who's better is by making them play each other. Go ahead.
Question. Is Villanova on one of your 2 out teams?
Yes.
I'm sorry, coach.
I know. I literally have written down, this is heartbreaking. I almost texted her before the game and was like, this could be huge, at large bid time. And then I just was like, no, that's jinxing it. And I was like, and then I lost. And I was literally planning my text to her. I was like, this is horrible. Anyway, I'll just start with Villanova then, since we're talking about them now. And it's heartbreaking. I have such a special, which is so funny because I literally hated them for taking Jill for an entire year, and now I have such a special place in my heart with them, just because we've made amends. But I think we cool. But I think that their loss today against Marquette just absolutely destroyed them. They had wins over St. Joe's and Navy, which are decent. Those are decent wins. They showed Navy was in overtime. I think those are good, solid wins to have. I think those could have gone either way. And then they'd lost to USC, Maryland, Denver, who are all ranked opponents. So those could be kind of sloughed off.
The only thing I would say about those losses, I'm not sure about the Denver one, but USC, they did not show up. I know it was on spring break, but they did not show up. And the same thing with the Maryland game.
Yeah, they were bad loss. No, they were definitely bad losses. They weren't good. I'd like to have seen one of them probably closer.
And those are
But they
two
also
tournament
lost.
teams, by the way, USC and Maryland. Both of those are going to the tournament.
Oh, right. Yeah. And then they also lost to UConn, which isn't ranked in the US Lacrosse Magazine poll. I guess you said it is ranked in IWCLA. That was already making me question whether they were going to be in or not, because I think that would have, especially because they got them handedly beaten in those other 3 games, that would have been a nice win to have along with the St. Joe's and Navy. So I was already kind of like, that was really making me question. And then the loss today with Marquette just kind of pushed it over the edge for me. I think that's not taking care of your business like twice now in a season. And UConn could have been like, you kind of just brushed it off because they're ranked, unranked, they're really close. But the Marquette, even though Marquette's really, really good, I saw that look. I know Marquette's a really good team. I think they needed that win today to kind of put themselves into the bubble, and that hurt them.
I think it was a big game for them. And yeah, I was just going to say, going into the game, I didn't think it would be a blowout or anything, but I didn't think Villanova was going to win. I just think Marquette's that good. But yeah. Villanova, I think they need to have something magical happen in the Big East tournament.
Yeah. Listen, I think also when a team is not used to, like, Jill did the same thing with us, but like when a team's not used to playing, a team's not used to being good, a team's not used to getting an at-large bid to a tournament. That's not something that they probably ever considered 5 years ago, was an at-large bid to the tournament. Like, this is just a new thing for them. Like, being good, winning games is new. So I'm not surprised, I guess, but it is unfortunate. Hopefully this was like, I want to say this was a learning year, but they're going to lose a lot of people next year, so it might have been their chance. But we'll see. I'm bummed for them.
Well, we'll see. Never know. We'll see. Anyway, still a good season for Villanova. Okay.
Very good.
Still a good season for them. My second team, I wrote down Towson, but then I scratched them out. I'm not sure about them. They're on your list?
I had them, but then I scratched them out too. I was like,
okay,
I don't know yet.
I thought I looked at your list.
No.
Just FYI, this is the first time Karson and I have known what teams we were picking. For the sections, just so we didn't pick the same teams. So anyways, other than that, we always come into the show not knowing what's going to be said. Okay. Anyway, so I have Virginia Tech. And 1-8 in ranked games.
Wow. It doesn't feel like that. I feel like they've been having a good season.
Well, that's because they've beaten all the teams that they should have beaten.
Oh.
But they haven't. I mean, then the one ranked win came against Duke. So as far as I'm concerned, they're 0-8 in ranked games. I'm sorry, but
fair enough.
Yeah, and so so I can't remember if I wrote this down before or after they beat Louisville today, which beating Louisville doesn't influence me one way or the other. I mean, if they would have lost Louisville, but beating Louisville doesn't have an influence. Or beating Pittsburgh, they played Pittsburgh. Duke played Louisville. Sorry. So 10-8, 3-6 in conference play. They have good losses, but at the end of the day, that's not enough for me. They lost to UVA by 5. They lost to Clemson by 4, Boston College by 2, UNC by 4. And so when they play at their best, do I think they are one of the 29 best teams in the country? Yes, I do. But you can't put them in if they don't have a resume that's worthy of getting in. And at 10-8, I just don't see it. I just don't see it.
I agree with you. I think that I had, like, if you would have told me they were 1-8 against ranked opponents, I would absolutely have not believed you, because they have had such good losses. Like those losses, I've watched their games and I've been like, oh my God, they're going to pull this out. And like, that's the last thought I remember having, not them losing, probably because that was like, oh, darn it, they didn't. But
yeah, I feel like just one of those, if you pull out one, it feels very different. So
yeah, I mean, let's see, like Boston College, they lost by 2. If you'd beaten Boston College, would you put them in if they'd beaten if they won Boston College?
Probably.
I would. They would. I mean, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think they're one of the 29 best teams, but they haven't proven it. They haven't. You have to win to get. I don't think you should get in. You should be rewarded based on good loss. I know I've talked about a lot about good losses, but for the other teams, Marquette, I had one. Let's see, one good loss, and Michigan had a few, but this team has 4. That's a lot. You got to win at some point. You got to win to get in.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's unfortunate because if they'd played, like, all of their ranked opponents were all like top 15 ranked opponents, but the exception of Duke. I wish that they had, and I guess Clemson, but I wish they had played people that were like more of that 15 to 25 range, because I think that they could have pulled those out and shown that they deserved it. You know what I mean? If they'd played those kinds of teams.
Yeah, and not trying to poop on my alma mater here, but they lost to Mercer. And Mercer, they don't have Haley Radigan this year. Okay, so their offense does not have the same firepower. It's not like they lost to Mercer equipped with Haley Radigan. They lost to Mercer. They only beat Old Dominion 8-4. And Old Dominion, a step in the right direction, is a very good season for them compared to where they've been. But you can only put up 8 goals? Are you serious? That ain't gonna get it done. So I just don't. I would love for them to get in, because I think, again, at their best, when they play at their best, they can compete. But they are just too inconsistent. And also, I love Torres, their goalie. She's a star. Okay, I love Torres. Okay, I just wanted to throw that out there. And also Mary Griffin. Shout out Mary G.
So my second team, who we've kind of touched on because it's Navy. So it was, I touched on earlier that I'm telling you, I kind of took the lazy way out because I was really torn. Like, I was having such a hard time with this, is that I was like, well, Army's in, Navy's out. Well, I'll put Navy in my out, because it was just like, but I think Navy's always in the conversation because they're always like 25. They're always like 22, 23, 24, 25. They like barely scrape in every year. And they're always in the conversation. So I think it would be big for them this year to not be in the conversation. Kind of like UNC men's basketball, right? Like, we were literally in the conversation up until the tournament happened because we're UNC men's basketball. Like, not because we had any good wins, not because we're doing anything good, but just because of our name. And I think that's kind of a similar thing with Navy. It's just like the what conference are they in? Patriot League, right?
Yes.
No. Yeah, Patriot League. Like, Patriot League always sends 2. Like, it was normally them and Loyola. They get in based on that second lane because no one else has really compared. And now that Army's here, I don't think they're going to be in it, which is going to be kind of a shock to their system, because I think they're used to just kind of being in it because they've been that second team in the Patriot League. But they beat Richmond and Jacksonville, who, again, Jacksonville's not that impressive, and I love Richmond, but they aren't doing so hot this year either. And then they lost to Duke. They lost to BU, which is just a blemish on the resume. I think the loss to Boston University is tough, a tough loss when you're trying to make a case for yourself. And I think they needed to beat Army to kind of like knock out that blemish. They lost to Villanova. Again, like I said earlier,
beat up on each other this year.
What'd you say?
Patriot League kind of beat up on each other this year.
Yeah, they did. And I don't think they're used to that. I don't think anybody's used to that, because the Army is like a new face. But yeah, I think this might be one tournament in a while that they don't get to go to, just because of.
Hey, they didn't make it last year either.
Did they really not?
Mm-mm.
Uh-oh. Maybe better get recruiting. Somebody needs to serve our country real fast.
For sure. They need to put, this is what they need to do. They need to put Anna Goddard up in the lineup. She's a good follower of lacrosse extras. She's a freshman at Navy. They need to put her on the field if they want to win. Not that I'm a coach, but I just put Mrs. Goddard up on the field and you'll get the job done. Okay.
The starting lineups are all of a sudden only people who follow lacrosse extras.
If they don't follow, what's wrong with them? You know, anyway. So your 2 teams, Navy and Villanova, you have not getting in.
Yeah, Villanova said with a very heavy heart.
I agree with you on both, and then I have Yale and Virginia Tech. And I think Virginia Tech, I almost put them in the path in section. I think they could still get in I think they need 3 wins in the ACC tournament. They beat Pittsburgh today. They need to, I don't know how the bracket lines up, but they need to beat a Notre Dame.
Syracuse next.
Okay, yeah, they need to beat Syracuse. Yeah, they need to beat Syracuse.
Yeah,
And
if
then
they beat
I think they
Syracuse,
need I think even if they beat Syracuse, I would still be a little on the fence. I think they need another one after that. I think they need to win 2 more. That's what I think.
even if they beat Syracuse, number 2, number whatever in the nation.
I mean, that would be a great win, but
Yeah.
that would so
Sure.
say if they beat Syracuse, they would then be 2-9 in ranked games. 2-9.
They'd be 2-8 because they would have played. They're 1-8 now, right? So they'd be 2-9. Are you saying
Yeah.
1 out of 8 or 2 or 1 and 8?
1 and 8. So 1 win, 8 losses in ranked games. So they would then be 2-9. And yes, it would be a great win, but at 2-9?
Wait, how are you going from 1-8 to 2-9? How are you adding a game on both sides of that?
Wait. Oh wait. Huh?
If they've won 1 and lost 8, and they win 1 more game, they'd be 1-2 lost 8.
2-8. Yeah, that's what I meant.
I was like,
my bad. Like I said, I'm no calculator over here. Okay. Yeah. So now I'm wondering about all my ranked game stats. Okay. Meg Blazer, please do not come at me telling me that all my ranked game stats were wrong in this podcast. Okay. Now I'm scared. Okay. Now I'm scared.
I didn't mean to make you second guess yourself.
No, anyways, so moving on to the final section, the path in. Okay. Teams that have a chance to get in and that probably have their fate in their own hands. Okay. I'm going to start off with an easy one, because they're only getting in if they get an automatic bid, and that is the Campbell Camels. Okay. Hump day is every day at Campbell University. Okay. Listen, 11-4, most wins in program history. 7-0 in the Big South play. It's going to be between them and Mercer University. One of those teams, they're going to meet each other in the championship, and one of those teams is going to win and go to the tournament. The other one's going to be packing and heading to the beach. Okay. And they haven't played Mercer yet. They play them to end the season. The final game of the season, they play Mercer before the Big South Conference tournament. We're probably going to provide coverage for that game next week, and that's a big game with big time postseason implications. Okay. Well, actually, it really doesn't have postseason implications because they're only going to get in if they win the tournament. But that's going to be a big game. I'm excited to watch it. So I have the Campbell Camels.
All right. Mine is Stanford, because I think that it's either going to be them or USC. I don't think they're both going to get to go. That's my hot take. And I think it's the same thing as, Stanford, they've beat USC once, they've lost to USC once. They've lost to Virginia, Jacksonville, Stony Brook, Colorado, Northwestern, and Denver. Now, Jacksonville doesn't look like a great loss. Colorado doesn't look like a great loss. The rest of those top 15 teams, shake them off.
Who have they beaten? You said they beat USC. Have they beaten any other ranked teams?
No. I don't believe so. I can double check.
That's not good.
No, they don't have, their resume is just not as, and that's the thing. It's like Stanford. Stanford's always so good. There's never anybody that you're normally like, they beat Oregon, Albany, Cornell, Arizona State.
Yeah, Arizona State's having a down year.
Oregon, and they beat Colorado the second time around, but they don't have any great wins. And I think that they've lost UNC and beat UNC once, so I think it's the same thing. I think their fate's in their own hands. I think they're going to have to win the Pac-12. I think if they win the Pac-12, then both of them go. I think USC and Stanford go, but I think if USC wins, then the Pac-12 only gets one bid, and Stanford doesn't get to go, in my opinion. Which they could win the tournament. That's very plausible. Like, they've beaten them once, they've lost them once, season split. So it's very possible they win, but I think they have to win.
For sure. What's their overall record?
They are, one second, I don't have it written down.
While you pull that up, I agree with you that if USC wins the tournament, well, then they're obviously in, but if USC loses, I still think 9-7. So yeah, I think they have to win the tournament, like you said, and I think USC is in either way. I think they've done enough. And that it could be interesting as well, because the Pac-12 normally gets both of those teams in. So if Stanford doesn't go, that opens up another
Michigan.
So if this could, and I didn't. It could be crazy how this could be a very fresh-faced tournament with teams, which would be, I think, great for our sport.
I hope so. Yeah, I think it got kind of stale there for a little bit. It was like the same teams over and over again. No one expect. It kind of was like, if I win, what happens? It doesn't matter because the same teams are gonna make it. Like even if I prove myself, you know. So yeah, so I think we need a Pac-12 win for Stanford for them to get in, which is
For
crazy.
sure. Yeah, I'm really, obviously, as you can tell through this podcast, I'm very big on ranked wins, and I just feel like if you have ranked wins, you have a good resume. If you don't, then it's tough.
Yeah, I think you have to prove yourself at some point. Like I think you have to be able to prove yourself, and
if not, you better win the conference.
Yep, pretty much.
Okay, so my second team, and I saved them for last. Johns Hopkins. I think. Actually, let me back up a few weeks. This team was dead to rights. They were 5-7, okay, and they looked finished. You know why? Because you need a 500 record to be tournament eligible. Just like Pitt last year, they were one game below 500, so they didn't get chosen for the NCAA tournament. You have to be at least 500. Hopkins was 5-7, 0-5, 0 wins, 5 losses in ranked games. Okay, and since then, let me see. Where do I have? They've had 3 straight wins, 2 of those ranked. 1 against Penn State, 1 against Towson, 1 against Michigan. 3 straight wins, 2 of them ranked, and they are now 8-7. I don't know if they have a game left or not, but they're 8-7. If they would have lost one of those games, they'd be below 500 right now, and they'd have to win at least 2 in the Big Ten tournament, which is going to be very tough to do. Okay, but since they're 8-7, I believe. Let me pull that. I don't want to give false information. Let me just make sure they either have a game left or they don't have a game left.
They don't have a game left. I'm looking at it.
They don't?
They played Penn State yesterday, and that was their last game, and they won 16-12.
Okay, so the worst they can finish is 8-8, and that's 500. So they will be tournament eligible if the committee thinks they are one of the 29 best teams, or really one of the 14 best at-large teams. And so I just want to repeat this because I thought they were done. 5-7, 0-5 in ranked games with Penn State, Towson, and Michigan. They could have lost all 3 of those games, but they won all 3. Okay, I mean, those games could have gone back and forth, but they didn't. They beat Michigan by 7 on the road. I mean, and so they're 8-7. They're 4-2 in the Big Ten, which I think is very impressive. Their losses, I think they lost by 1 to Penn. They lost to Loyola. They lost to Stony Brook. They lost to Maryland. They lost by 1 goal to Maryland. So they have 2 big ranked wins, which they needed. And I think I wouldn't be mad if they don't get in because they are 8-7. But I think, actually, go ahead. What are your thoughts on Hopkins?
I would just say, well, first, if McCormick if he doesn't get in 2 times in a row and being this close, I'm going to feel horrible for him because he deserves it. So I'll feel horrible about that. But then also, yeah, I was just looking at their schedule, and I think even they started out 5-7. That's true, but their losses were just so like tough to swallow. Like, I mean, 2 to Loyola, 1 to Penn, like you said. I mean, JMU was a little tough, Northwestern a little tough, but 3 to Stony Brook, like 1 to Maryland, like you said. I just think that they had this little funk that they were going through, and they couldn't finish games. They weren't closing, like we've talked about before. And I think I want them to make it because I want them, not that I don't know if they'll make it past the first round, but I want them to be given a chance to try to close those big games because they were still learning how to do it in the beginning of the season, and they were clearly good enough. They had the talent. I mean, you don't lose to Loyola 10-12 and be significantly worse than them. Like, that's not how that works. So I do remember Loyola having a horrible game against them that day, so maybe it was a mix of both of them. But I agree. I want them in. I love Hopkins. I think they deserve it. They've been such a solid team. They just haven't been able to close out a lot of their games. So 8-8's a tough record to let in, but I agree with you. I think it'd be awesome if they made it in.
Deserve. That's a strong. You think they deserve it?
I do. I really do. I just think like 1 goal losses is just a mental thing. It's that 1 goal, 2 goal losses at that point. Like, it has nothing to do with who's the better team. It has everything to do about who's mentally stronger to close out a game. And
You got to
So I
win though
think
at some point. And they
agree.
have down the stretch they have. So props to
Yeah,
them.
I agree. I think that's part of it. I think part of it is like you can kind of look at their schedule and watch that mental. With the exception, I wish that they would have won Maryland. I think that would have really helped my case if that had been reversed. But I think you can kind of watch their mental growth as you go. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like they deserve it. I feel like playing that close to that many super good teams gives you some sort of cred, whether it actually gets you in or not. But I do think it gives you cred.
I think this is just a very ironic situation. Okay, Tim McCormick and his whole staff last year, they were at Arizona State, and Hopkins got in over Arizona State. Arizona State played more ranked teams, so they had more losses. They also had more ranked wins, but Hopkins got put in over them. Okay, now this year Hopkins is the team with a lot of ranked games and a lot of ranked losses. So does the committee treat Hopkins as they treated Arizona State last year? They probably won't, because Hopkins is a big name and that shouldn't be how it is, but they probably won't give them the same treatment that they gave Arizona State. I will never be over that. I hate the committee. So anyways, I think that Johns Hopkins, their path to get in is this. In the first round of the Big Ten tournament, they have Rutgers. They need to win that game. In the second round, they'll play the winner of Maryland/Ohio State, most likely Maryland. And if they beat Maryland, I think they're in. And that would put them in the championship. They're not going to beat Northwestern. But if they beat Rutgers and then Maryland and finish and then lose, so that'll be 10-8 overall record. I think in an appearance in the Big Ten title game, I think that's enough to put them in.
I agree. Oh, I hope so. I think because that would just show their mental growth that I was talking about earlier. Like that would show, hey, we lost Maryland by 1. We've grown as a team. Now we've beaten them. Like we had the talent, we just couldn't finish. Now we can. I think that would be a really big statement to the selection committee to carry them forward. I hope so.
Well, listen, there are a lot of questions, and we're coming up on answer time. The final exam is due. Okay, the teacher's grading the papers. Okay, this is going to be great. So, last question before I let you go. Let's see. So for the ACC. Let me pull that up real quick. ACC women's lacrosse standings. Let's see. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How many ACC teams do you think make the NCAA tournament?
Oh God. Okay. Let's see if I can do this on the top of my head. Out of the 10. I think Boston College, Syracuse, Notre Dame, North Carolina.
They ain't going no. I'm just playing.
No, listen, they're the same thing as men's basketball. They're going whether you like it or not. They could be.
No, they definitely deserve to go.
Wait, who am I missing? Not
Virginia?
Pitt. Oh, maybe Clemson. I think that's a tough one. I think that's a bubble.
I think Clemson is in.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that'd be 5 because it's not no Pitt, no Virginia Tech.
Boston College, Syracuse, UNC, Virginia, Notre Dame, Clemson would be 6.
Oh, Virginia. I forgot about Virginia. Yeah.
I think Virginia's in. They should be.
Yeah. No, I agree.
I think the only team out of those that, Clemson's 12-5, 4-5 in the conference. All the other teams have winning records in the conference. But I still think Clemson. I think Clemson is in. I'd be very surprised if Clemson did not make it.
Yeah, me too. I would be too, but no, I'm sure they're in. They're probably in. Let's see. I feel like six is so many.
It's the best conference by far. Listen.
All right, listen. U.S. Lacrosse Magazine has the ACC with 5. That's their prediction.
Well, listen. This is how you know the conference is stacked. Okay, if you took Virginia Tech, Louisville, Duke, and Pitt, put them in any other conference other than the Big Ten, they're probably going to win the conference.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe not the Big East.
But who are Clemson's win over? Duke, Virginia Tech, Louisville, and Pitt in the ACC.
Yes. Let's see.
God, I wish Duke had done better for them because that would have been so much better for them.
Yeah, so they lost to Syracuse by 9, lost to North Carolina by 9, lost to Boston College by 7, beat Duke by a goal, lost to Virginia by 9, lost to Notre Dame by 3. So yeah, they've really gotten handled pretty easily, other than by Notre Dame. But they do play North Carolina on the 26th. They have another chance to impress
I feel like if they hold that game close, it's a lot better of a conversation. I
Okay,
don't
now
like
that you say that, I agree with you.
It's a bubble. I think it's a bubble. I'm not counting them
Yeah,
out for sure, but I do think it's a bubble conversation because their wins in the ACC haven't come from
yeah.
tournament teams.
ACC wins. They beat Pitt, Louisville, and Duke.
Yeah.
And Virginia Tech.
Yeah. Which Virginia Tech, I mean, I guess I've been sitting here thinking Virginia Tech's having an incredible season, but apparently I was wrong. So, yeah, I think I just don't love. I don't know if they've lost by 9. I don't love their ACC wins. I wish they had one of those was flipped, obviously. But I mean, new program to be a bubble team, impressive. I think we'll see how that goes. I think they could be either way. Like you said, if Ivy only sends one, Pac-12 only sends one, it could open up a spot for an ACC school. Michigan and Clemson. There we go. There's our 2 that go if Ivy and Pac-12 only send one.
Hey, I think we're on to something here. Okay, not that we're seeing the future. Okay, but
I think we gotta get 100% here.
Awesome. So, any final thoughts? As our next episode, I'm trying to think. Our next episode will come out. Let's see. Our next episode will be released. So this one will be on the 25th. So our next one will be on the 9th. So I think we'll know the NCAA tournament selection by then.
Yeah, because it starts May 13th, I think, or May 12th or something like that.
May 12th? Then yeah, I think they would do it on that Sunday, the 7th, maybe.
Yeah. So we'll get to see if we're right.
Yeah, and then we get to see the bracket. And also, I just wanted to make one correction. A few podcasts ago, I said that the top 4 teams receive a bye. I was wrong. I went and looked at the bracket from last year. The top 3 teams receive a bye in the first round of the NCAA tournament.
Oh, who do we think? Boston College, Northwestern, Syracuse?
Who's number 4? Probably Denver if they win the Big East.
Oh, probably Denver. Denver's.
But then I don't know which. I don't know which of those teams would be the 4th instead of the top 3. So
yeah, it'll be fun. I like it. This has been a shakeup in women's lacrosse this year. I like it.
For sure. The word parity keeps coming up in broadcasts I listen to, and it's so true. There's more competitiveness in women's lacrosse this year. I feel like it's been growing year after year. So
I agree. Not surprising, but exciting.
Yep. So anyways, that is a wrap on this episode of The Player and the Journalist.